Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. In the second video, I'm gonna review one of my favorite memoirs called A Stranger to Myself, The Inhumanity of War, Russia, 1941-44 by Willy Peter Reese. In short, Willy Peter Reese was a 20-something Wehrmacht soldier from Duisburg, Germany, who was sent to the Eastern Front during Operation Barbarossa in 1941. This book chronicles his personal experiences, feelings, and thoughts about the war, detailing the horror during the bloodiest theater of conflict in World War II. He was killed in a battle near Vitebsk, Belarus, in June 1944 at the age of 23. His memoir, A Stranger to Myself, was published posthumously decades later in 2005, originally in German. The English version was released later. Before I start diving in on the things that I like about this book, it is worth mentioning that Reese was an anti-Nazi, a pacifist, and a religiously tolerant guy, as he had a Jewish friend who was sadly sent to Auschwitz, and Reese even tried to find him, but to no avail. He was also an introverted and sensitive thinker, writer, and poet who enjoyed nature, books, and music. At least all these are my personal impressions about him that I got while reading and after finishing the book. Oh yes, and his schoolmates even called him Pudding, given his soft and delicate nature. In addition, this memoir is called A Stranger to Myself because the war, as well as the day-to-day fighting, hunger, cold, fatigue, sleep deprivation, and death, turned Reese into an alcoholic and nicotine-addicted cynic, which he initially wasn't at all. Even though he didn't detail what crimes he had personally committed during his military service in Russia from 1941 to 1944, I got a sense that Reese was also responsible for the killing and looting of Russian civilians back then. He was involved in the unspeakable brutalities, so much so that he turned into a monster, a cold-blooded, heartless monster. He was aware of this horrific self-transformation, but he believed that he could not change himself to the way he used to be. Reese had become a stranger to himself. Okay, so what do we have here? A peace-loving, regular young German, didn't believe in Nazism or support any sort of conflicts, who, by a stroke of bad luck, got drafted into the Wehrmacht and sent to fight and wage war in Russia, only to die there, only to be sacrificed by a twisted ideology he had never supported in the first place. Wow, this irony, such an irony, sure promises an interesting story, doesn't it? Yes, it does, but bear in mind that this isn't just a story. This is a true story written by the author himself in his real flesh and blood. To kick things off, I like all the contradictions within this memoir. We've got Nazism and an anti-Nazi. We've got war and a longing desire for peace, pure white snow and spilled red blood, a decent man and a war criminal in the same individual. Another thing that I would like to highlight here is the myth of the clean Wehrmacht and the reality of the murderous Wehrmacht, which was as equally guilty as their Waffen-SS counterparts. This is also a point in the book that editor Stefan Schmitz noted in the memoir's preface. A Stranger to Myself shows the audience that Wehrmacht soldiers and officers took part in atrocities against harmless civilians as well. As Reese himself put it, war excused our thefts, encouraged cruelty, and the need to survive didn't go around getting permission from conscience. There is this particular quality this memoir has that makes it really stand out from most ex-Wehrmacht soldiers' memoirs in general, and that is honesty. Reese wrote A Stranger to Myself from 1941 to 1944. He mostly wrote while he was still on duty in Russia, like during a break, before bed, or when he was hospitalized for his injuries. He was injured at least 3 times. He always tried to squeeze some time to pen his feelings or thoughts to keep him sane as the war got crazier. When on leave, he went back to his family home in Duisburg and typed his manuscript with a typewriter. After another furlough in early 1944, he left Horizon again and never came back. He died. Therefore, he had no time to change or edit his manuscript, like to prettify or sugarcoat anything. It was left as it was, pure, raw, and real. In addition, I think Reese's memoir could help psychology students or anyone within this field of study to learn about post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. The war made Reese suffer from PTSD, but he very likely never had any idea since the term PTSD was invented much later. However, the symptoms he was showing throughout the book prove that he actually had this disorder, one of which is that he felt strange to find himself in a normal civilian life on each furlough, and he concluded that he could not reintegrate into normal life anymore. So, if you are ever curious about an active soldier's psychological dynamics and damage resulting in PTSD, then this book is for you. As you turn each page, you'll see the degradation of himself slowly unfold. The spectacled young man had lost his faith in God and humanity and turned to heavy drinking and non-stop smoking to numb the pain. He felt the war turn his heart into stone and turn himself into a soulless machine. Before we move on to the next section that covers things I don't like about this book, there is one little story I find very touching in it. It was undated, but Reese wrote it when he was deep in Russia's wilderness. So, it was one rainy and foggy evening. Everyone was marching, including him, far at the back, without knowing where the front was. Suddenly, a horse cart that Reese was clinging to skidded into a ditch and toppled over. Prolonged exhaustion and hunger made the horses unable to get up, and so the driver went to get some help. Reese stayed to watch over the cart and its precious cargo, now lying in the mud, but not for long due to the rain. So he entered a villager's house nearby, uninvited of course, and in his own words he said, "I walked in like a ghost, claggy, pale, with dead eyes. The woman brought me milk. The little girl offered me her bowl of porridge, and I ate. I shared my chocolate with her. Then I felt I couldn't hold back my tears and went outside. It was a terrible thing to be human and a soldier." This passage shows that even though his heart had hardened like a stone, Reese actually still had some sense of humanity and sensitivity left, because two simple gestures touched him profoundly. But there are still some minuses to this book as well. First, let's start with the writing style. So many people on Goodreads or other similar forums complain about Reese's too flowery or too lyrical paragraphs in the beginning, and I couldn't agree more. Yes, there is this impression that he was trying too hard to write like his idol, Rilke, but it just didn't work out. However, as the pages progressed and he had less and less time to write at the front, his writing style changed. It became more concise and blatant. It was more to the point, so to say, which was good. He described everything, from battle scenes to decaying corpses and burnt houses, in very vivid and graphic detail. Had he realized earlier that it was best for him to write in a matter-of-fact style, which he really mastered, this book could have turned out better. Secondly, Reese used the word mask way too many times in his memoir. Of course, he meant it figuratively, as if he put on his soldier mask to take on the Eastern Front stage in order to protect his true self behind it, so he wouldn't lose his mind. Perhaps it was still part of his desperate effort to write like Rilke. Still, 34 occurrences of the word mask spread throughout 140-ish pages are awfully too many. The third and final thing I don't like about the book is the placement of the pictures, which is simply disorganized. There are several pictures showing Reese as a kid, with his family, and with his comrades. As informative as they are, the pictures are poorly gathered in one section of the memoir, spanning a few pages with no context. For example, there is this picture of him with his fellow Wehrmacht trainees after a military exercise in Eifel, Germany, 1941. The picture is unreasonably tucked on page 80 something of the book, which talks about his service in Russia in 1943. See how improperly misplaced they are? If only the images were correctly placed according to the timeline or theme, the book could be visually better. Okay, that's all from me for now. Thank you for sticking around and listening to my review of A Stranger to Myself, The Inhumanity of War, Russia, 1941-44 by Willy Peter Reese. Feel free to leave your comments below. And if you have a book that you want me to review as well, please let me know in the comment section. I'll see you in the next review. Bye!